regular people wearing silly outfits and a bunch of makeup, bringing joy and happiness to children of all ages, making the world a better, sillier place, one whoopee cushion at a time. And Graham, I'd really like to help you overcome your fear of clowns with some exposure therapy, so I've brought my parents along to the show.
Okay.
So please welcome my mom and dad, Buddy the Clown and Button the Clownette.
This is the greatest. Here comes Amy's parents. They are in full clown regalia. Buddy and Button. Buddy has got the traditional orange clown hair. Button is indeed cute as a button. Oh. And a little music show, and here comes the mic.
I'm really sorry that I made you feel afraid of clowns and that.
I appreciate that, man.
I'd honestly like to give you a hug to apologize if that's okay.
What do we...
Oh, okay, this is an important part of healing.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Okay, all right. This is a long time. Graham is getting a hug from Buddy and Button.
Welcome to the club.
And representing Graham with the red nose, he is 190th clown now. That's Amy Edgar and her clown parents, Buddy and Button. Oh, and she's keeping her parents on for the vote. I like this. It is time to vote, audience, by applause. Who believes and agreed with funny man Graham Clark that clowns are not funny man Graham Clark? Graham, with some nice support from the crowd. And who believed that Amy's love of clowns is right on the red nose, Amy Edgar. Well, the crowd has spoken. The winner in her first debate is Amy Edgar. Thank you for clowning around with us, Amy and the Edgar family. Big hand for Amy and Graham Clark, everybody. Well, that's all for this week. I'm Steve Patterson saying to all the new professional clowns out there, remember to take some time to stop and smell the flower. I'll argue with you again soon, Canada. Good night.
The Debaters is created by Richard Side. This week's episode was produced by Josh Bailey, Graham Clark, Chloe Edbrook, Dean Jenkinson, and Nicole Callender. With continuity by Graham Clark, Diana Francis, and Gary Jones. Technical production by James Perella and Corey Haberstock. Story editing by Gary Jones. With special thanks to Katie Ellen Humphreys and David Pride. Executive producer of CBC Radio Comedy is Lee Pitts. And thanks to everyone at the Bella Concert Hall in Calgary.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. Julianne is in the late stages of pregnancy. She is also epileptic and has had to change her medication.
It was really scary. It was leaping into the unknown. This is the only medication my body has ever known since I was diagnosed with epilepsy.
Julianne talks about the support she is getting from a unique program, the Lullaby Project, on White Coat Black Art with Dr. Brian Goldman. Tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, 2 in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere.
afternoon, and welcome to Radio Noon, coming to you a minute or two early. I'm Laurie Hook-Stratton, filling in for Janet Stewart today. Coming up on today's show, lots for you to think about. After the 12:30 news, please call in, and this is for real. It's not a scam, but we are talking scams. Phone scams are on the rise, say Winnipeg police. So how do we fight that rise and protect ourselves from those scams? And have you or a loved one ever been the victim of phone fraud? We want to hear about it. 204-780-0893. And the Manitoba Agriculture Museum is proud to be exhibiting 3 new shows curated by women. We'll hear about that. But coming right up, Brandon's Women's Resource Centre hopes to reach more domestic violence victims living in rural areas. It's just coming up to 2 minutes after 12 o'clock. You're listening to Radio Noon. You're at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. After last week's triple homicide in McCreary and the killing of 5 people in Carman last February, an advocate says communities are in crisis. Kim Wasiak is the Director of Counseling Advocacy with the Brandon Women's Resource Centre. She says better supports are needed to prevent intimate partner violence before it starts, especially in rural and remote communities. Wasiak spoke with CBC's Chelsea Kemp, who first asked what it's like to service such a large geographical area.
We see so many barriers in our rural communities when there's domestic violence, intimate partner violence, sexual assaults. There just aren't the services and resources in rural areas. We go right to the American border, to Saskatchewan, and then up to Dauphin. So our area is huge. And it's the same issues with lack of resources, lack of shelters, lack of housing, and those really unique barriers for women in rural Manitoba.
What does domestic abuse look like in rural settings?
So there's really unique situations that women and children, families, youth find themselves in. So some of the barriers are the transportation. That's one of the biggest issues. Not knowing where to go is also an issue. Resources that are available, housing. If a woman does want to leave with her family, it's likely that she won't be staying in her home community. The other piece that we find too is the incredible isolation that happens, and also that people don't want anybody else to know what's going on in their families. Domestic violence has always been a private issue, and it's still the same in rural areas.
Do you find there's more of a taboo? Because it is a smaller area, it's smaller population, it is harder to have that privacy.
Oh, for sure. Like, how can we come into the communities in a quiet and respectful manner and still offer supports?
And it's been a troubling year in Manitoba. We've seen some really horrific domestic abuse that's ended in multiple deaths. What do those situations tell us?
There has been some changes for sure, but there's so much more. There's law enforcement, there's justice systems, just supports from family and friends. It can't just be one service. It has to be everybody collaborating and working together. One of the biggest things that I hear from clients is that there are not officers or constables or CMP members within their community. So when they're phoning for help or phoning 911, it can take 20 minutes to an hour for someone to get there. And that's really concerning. It's sometimes difficult to get a phone. I mean, in rural Manitoba, cell phones don't always work, right? We get individuals that don't have a vehicle, or the keys are taken, or there's no gas, or they just can't turn to anybody. So we need better safety nets. We need better education, information. We need to talk more about protection orders, third-party reports, and that's some of the information that we would like to be able to bring to the rural communities.
Let's talk about protection orders. I know that's something you'll help clients with. How do they work? How do you use them effectively?
Yeah. So protection orders, about half of them never get granted. So that's one of the things. It's about a 16-page document, front and back, legal size. It's huge. It's incredibly traumatizing for people to fill out because they're having to relive the domestic violence that, or intimate partner violence and or the sexual assault that's happening within the relationship as well. Once the document has been filled out, we go to the courthouse. We always accompany folks. We don't like them to go on their own. And then the protection order is either granted or not. Once the order is granted, if it happens to be, then that information goes to police or RCMP, and then the person will hopefully be served quickly because it's not in place until that person is served, right? The issues is sometimes it can make things worse. Absolutely, it can escalate, especially if the woman has left, because we know that's the most difficult time. But it's the breaches, and sadly we see in this situation, and that's just happened, that there was a protection order in place. We don't know how many times or if there was reports made, but we guide women to report every single time and make a statement to the police so that it's official, it's documented. The other challenge we have with protection orders is getting kids on them, like children and youth. It's almost impossible, even though the violence does trickle down in the entire family. So it's a real challenge to get them done because kids are being abused as well too, right? It's not just the mom.
Kim Wasiak is the Director of Counseling and Advocacy at the Women's Resource Centre in Brandon. She spoke with CBC's Chelsea Kemp.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world, staying on top of stories around the globe, and connected close to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
There's new music from Manitoba country artist Jade Turner. She just released her latest single earlier today. Here's Wandering Soul.
She's checked the east, she's checked the west, but she hasn't seemed to have found it yet. She once thought she did, she came so close, but over time she realized she was just living with a ghost. And her hair is a mess and she smells like sage and cedar, and when she gets sad she cries under the moon. Wandering soul, wandering soul, she can't find her home. Wandering soul, nowhere feels right, it all feels like lies. She doesn't know that she can't find it all inside her. Wandering soul, wandering soul, she can't seem to see it from where she stands. She wonders if it's out there somewhere she can land. Is it just a story someone made up? Either way she keeps searching, no, she'll never give up. And her hair is a mess and she smells like sage and cedar, and when she gets sad she cries under the moon. Wandering soul, wandering soul, she can't find her home. too. Wandering soul, she can't find her home. Wandering soul, nowhere feels right. It all feels like lies. She doesn't know that she can't find it all inside her wandering soul, wandering soul.
From Mississippiwistic Cree Nation, that was Jade Turner with her latest single, Wandering Soul.
The CBC Music Top 20. CBC Music Live.
All right.
Savor the flavor of the Francophone world on C'est Formidable. Experience the next wave of Indigenous music with Reclaim. The global sounds of frequencies. End your day or start your late night with music on CBC Radio 1. Weeknights at 11, 11:30 in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
Food, art, music, dance, and more. Cultivation Festival FAMD is back August 19th to 25th. Proudly sponsored by CBC. Come celebrate Manitoba's rich Filipino culture with events taking place all over the city, like Ceremonia, an all-Philippine X art exhibit, Lupa Ay Bahay, a Filipino indigenous craft exhibit, and Sala, a Filipino film festival. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
You're listening to Radio Noon. It is 12 minutes after 12 o'clock. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, filling in for Janet Stewart. As we've been hearing in the news this week, the inflation rate in Canada is cooling. It's a welcome development for people struggling to make ends meet. Over the past few years, many Canadians have been finding ways to trim their household budget. One strategy includes packing a lunch to work rather than dining out. For some, that means navigating tricky questions such as, is my food too smelly for the office? Or should I confront the person who I suspect has stolen my lunch? CBC's Blair Sanderson hit the street to talk office kitchen politics.
Hello.
Hello.
Do you ever pack a lunch when you go to work?
Yes.
Yes.
I do most days.
Well, today I brought a salad.
Sandwich.
Like a leftover curry or maybe some pasta.
And what is the biggest problem when it comes to the communal fridge at work?
Well, I just brought in a piece of pizza. I actually left it overnight, but wanted to eat it the next day, and it was gone.
Yeah, someone stole my yogurt the first 2 weeks that I started at my job. Yeah, they took my Greek yogurt.
I went there and it was gone, and I didn't know what the heck happened.
What was it?
Sandwich.
For sure, you make a good enough lunch, someone's going to take it.
And so what did you do?
What could I do? Nothing. There's nothing you can do.
I think I found out who did it, but there was no real confession in the end.
We had an issue once where one of our newest colleagues didn't realize it was potluck day, and they put their food in the fridge with everybody's potluck offerings, and then it had been put out on the potluck table for everyone to enjoy.
He must have brought a lot of food for people to mistake it as a potluck offering.
No, it was just an individual size serving. Yeah, it was a nice sort of couscous rice dish. It's delicious. We all had some.
Any other problems with the communal fridge at work?
Yes. I've brought things in and left them in the fridge for like a month, and then there's like an email that goes out and it's like somebody left their Tupperware in the fridge and it's moldy, and whoever's it is, please remove it. And I sneak in there kind of late and get rid of it without anyone knowing.
Definitely have done that. In fact, had to clean out the fridge for someone who forgot their food in the fridge today. They messaged to ask me to do it because they didn't want it to go bad.
Today this happened?
This happened today.
Did you consider taking a bite?
I actually did take a bite. It was very good chicken.
What was it, really?
Yeah, it was chicken. And I knew it was fine. They'd only made it a couple of days before, but it wouldn't be okay by the time they were back next week from vacation.
Oh yeah, I've left the yogurt in there for far longer than I should have before, but somebody took care of that for me, so it was nice.
How did you know that it had happened if someone took care of it for you?
Well, it kind of just occurred to me. And I was like, oh, I think I left that yogurt in there. It was like 3 weeks ago. It's like, I hope that got thrown out, and it did.
Oh, when somebody leaves food in the fridge for weeks and it gets moldy. And sorry you're not getting your package back, because I'm not dumping it out and having it stink. So I'm throwing your whole container, food, I don't care if you spent $50 on this container, garbage.
Oh, I have a coworker who likes to check expiry dates, and it wasn't expired. But she threw it out, and it was when I was pregnant, so I was very, very upset when I went to the fridge and found that my can't remember what it was, milk or something was gone.
Have you ever stolen food from someone else?
Absolutely not.
Not me, yeah. Not me, that's for sure.
Because my rage, if someone did it to me, would be so great that I could never, do it to anyone else. You don't get away in the way of me and my food.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And enjoy whatever food you're going to have today.
Going to go get ice cream.
Thank you.
Well, I got to say, I'm astonished by all the thievery. People were getting quite upset about that, and all the ick left in the fridge. That part I believe, but the thievery? That was CBC's Blair Sanderson talking to people about the sometimes fraught social dynamics of the office fridge. And Blair also asked what food should be banned from microwaving in the office. By far, the most common answers were fish, followed by popcorn. You are listening to Radio Noon at 16 minutes after 12 o'clock. Well, phone scams are on the rise, say Winnipeg police. So how do we fight that rise and protect ourselves from scams? Have you or a loved one ever been the victim of phone fraud? We want to hear about it when we talk phone scams during the call-in after 12:30 with an expert from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So tune in for that, 204-780-0893. Please give us a call and tell us if you've been scammed or know someone who has been or want to find out more about how these scams work and how to protect yourself. Looking at Riley's forecast, mostly sunny today, makes a change from this morning where it was so foggy driving on number 8, but now that seems to all be gone. We're shooting for a high of 30 degrees, winds out of the southeast, 20 to 40. And on Saturday, 30 again, and Sunday, 30 as well. And the temperature is staying high all through next week, it looks like. So summer is staying with us. And some temperatures for you right now. In Brandon, it's 21 degrees. Churchill is 14. In Dauphin, it's 18 degrees, and it's hazy in Dauphin. Gimli, 22. In the Paw, it's 18. In Thompson, it's 17 degrees. In Winnipeg, partly cloudy, but mostly sunny. And it's 22 degrees. You're listening to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoog-Stratton. You're at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. The Manitoba Agricultural Museum is known for its antique farm machinery displays and other relics of ag days gone by. The quality of their collections and exhibits gained them the designation of being one of Manitoba's 7 designated museums. And they now have 3 new exhibitions curated by women. Joining us to discuss one of the exhibits, called Manitoba Farmstead Shelter Belts, is curator Brenda Brown. She's a professor of landscape architecture at the University of Manitoba. And to get the big picture of what these exhibits mean to the museum, we're also joined by Tricia Dick, who is the museum's collections and programming manager. Hello to you both.
Hi there.
Hi. So, Tricia, I mentioned the Manitoba Farmstead Shelter Belts, but what are the other 2 exhibits?
We have 2 other exhibits, both curated by women here at the museum. One being called Women's Labor in the Home and in the Workplace by Brenna Sadler. She's one of our curatorial assistants this summer. We've been so happy to have her voice in that exhibition. And then the other one is First Farmers of Manitoba, curated by our guest curator, Amanda McLeod from Sagging First Nation.
And what do those exhibitions consist of?
So the first one, obviously, as the title would indicate, women's labor, is sort of I would say, a survey of all the different ways that women have been important in rural Manitoba development, along with the pioneer story, of course, and then other things moving into women's suffrage as well.
Okay. And how do these 3 exhibitions fit into the mandate of the museum?
Well, our mandate is to allow and enable our visitors to walk in the footsteps of those who came before. And of course, that relates to agriculture in the province of Manitoba. So we know that we have a vast collection, as you mentioned, of tractors and farm machinery here that often gets, the first look for most of our visitors,
Sure.
and they know we have it. But these really enhance our story. They tell a more equitable story about who was all involved in, the province of Manitoba's development with related to agriculture and farming, of course.
Right. And Brenda Brown.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm very well, Brenda.
Good. How are you doing? I'm doing all right.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, Max.
I think we're being infiltrated by ghost voices. Brenda, are you there?
Can you hear
Tell me how the lighting is.
Oh, we're talking about lighting. This is live radio for you. This is what happens when you combine live radio with YouTube, which is also enhancing to our broadcast. I wonder. So we're just trying to hook up with Brenda Brown, who is the curator, of course, of one of the exhibitions that's on at the Agriculture Museum of Manitoba right now. And I've just been talking with Tricia Dick, and she was telling us about the other exhibitions. And the one that we want to hear about now from Brenda is about the shelter belts. Tricia was talking about how it's part of their summer programming with 3... Can you hear this? We're getting cross signals here.
Okay, and just so you know,
I'm looking for direction from across the glass, but
this morning at any time.
and I think this is one of those moments in radio where somebody says, "You know what? I think we have time for a little music here." So that's what we're going to do. Over to you, Marshall. We're going to song. We're going to do how about Mackenzie Porter and Tornadoes? Can we hit that one? And we'll get this cleared up. Thanks.
There's something about the fast life. We all wanna shout and adrenaline high. You're 100 mile an hour slow ride, cutting through the clouds of a podunk sky. Anybody in the right mind will get the hell out of here. Yeah, go and get going. But I'm staring in the eye of it, even though every damn siren's on. 'Cause baby, I'm a sidewinder, storm rider. I'm going down like a telephone wire. You're a Mustang, runaway, two-lane drifter. I must have a thing for twisters. Hot as Arizona, cold as Colorado, trying to catch that feeling like lightning in a bottle. I'm gonna go where the wild wind blows, tearing up the road, chasing tornadoes. Baby, when the dust clears, I'll be hungover, just sipping through the rubber like a hot mess. Red lipstick smear, put my heels back on, run back to the trouble. Maybe it's time I should lock it inside, put up all the windows and doors. But I'll ignore all the warnings, at least till the morning. 'Cause boy, when you rain, you pour. 'Cause baby, I'm a sidewinder, storm rider. I'm going down like a telephone wire. You're a Mustang, runaway, two-lane drifter. I must have a thing for twisters. Hot as Arizona, cold as Colorado, trying to catch that feeling like lightning in a bottle. I'm gonna go where the wild wind blows, tearing up the road, chasing tornadoes. I feel the calm before the storm, stirring up inside my soul. Waiting on the clouds to come rolling in. Here you come and there I go. 'Cause baby, I'm a sidewinder, storm rider. I'm going down like a telephone wire. You're a Mustang.
Well, after that brief musical interlude, we resume programming. Thank you very much, Mackenzie Porter with Tornadoes. We were just speaking by Zoom, and you know what these kinds of technical difficulties can be. Brenda Brown had just joined our conversation. I'd been speaking earlier with Tricia Dick, who is the museum's collection and program manager, and we are talking about some museum new things this summer. 3 woman-curated exhibitions that have been on. And I want to go to you, Brenda. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. And can you tell us about the exhibition you curated about the Manitoba farmstead shelter belts?
Well, I think
maybe curate may not be quite the right description of my relationship. Because I was responsible for a lot of the work there. But I worked along with 7 research assistants who provided very beautiful drawings. The project involved me plus my team, going around to different farms in southern Manitoba and documenting the shelterbouts around the farmsteads and actually interviewing the farmers about their farmstead shelterbouts and their significance for them. So the exhibit involves some very beautiful drawings, diagrams, which my research assistants did. There's quite a long video that includes many images of trees moving in the wind with the voices of those interviewed talking about their particular relationship to those trees. And there's some historical information about farming and trees in Manitoba. And let's see, what else? There's something like 15 different framed images. There's 2 images per frame, so it's quite extensive.
Well, and Tricia, I'll go to you now because I want to ask you, how important is it that these exhibitions were all curated or brought to you, in Brenda's case, by women in terms of how women have been represented or underrepresented in agricultural history?
Yes, it's vital. It's very important. Basically, our museum and all others have been shaped by the objects that have been collected in those spaces. And so because we have a tremendous amount of sort of vehicles, tractors, and that equipment we talked about, we have to make room and spaces for those other voices as well. So having the 3 women represented design work and research here means that they're able to go in and take up those spaces that we need those stories for. And our younger generations are also, they're looking for that equity, right, to be expressed in museums today as well.
And why haven't those stories been shared?
I think it probably takes, amount of dedication to pursue through that. Lots of research has been, through decades has been about tractor brands, manufacturers, technology, especially with the relationship to farming progress, right? So we are lacking the research in some of those other areas. We don't have as much compiled for that. And so being able to offer these now means that, we're adding that to our canon.
I only have a minute or so left. So yes, Brenda, I did want to hear from you.
Well, I just wanted to add, there is increasing interest in the academic area in terms of women as well as Indigenous people's involvement in agriculture. So there have been several significant books over the past 10 or 15 years.
Well, it's nice to see them being brought forward at the museum. And I've just got a minute left. And Tricia, I'll just ask you, what's been the response from visitors over the summer to these exhibits?
They breathtaking and just appreciative and identification and familiarity with our other visitors.
Well, that's wonderful. And Brenda, have you been through the museum since all 3 of those exhibits have been up?
I haven't been there since I haven't seen them actually. So I can't speak to them at this time.
Well,
I think it's great that they're there.
I'm happy that so many people have been to see them, and so great to have you both on the program today. And thank you very much for waiting for the gremlins to subside. It's been lovely to talk to you both.
Thank you, Lori.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
That's Tricia Dick. She manages the Manitoba Agriculture Museum. And we were also joined by Professor of Landscape Architecture Brenda Brown, who put together the Manitoba Farmyard Shelter Belt exhibit. And it's on until the end of September. But you can see the exhibitions of First Farmers and Women's Labor. There's 3 of them. Those 2 are part of the permanent collection, along with all the other cool stuff at the Manitoba Agriculture Museum. We'll be back after the news, and our call-in is about phone scams. So give us a call if you've experienced or wonder about the latest in phone scams. 204-780-0893. You're listening to Radio Noon. It's time for the news.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Rosanna Hempel. At 12:30, it's 23 in Winnipeg. Sun and cloud this afternoon, a high of 30, humidex of 35. Just hours after CN Rail announced it was resuming service following yesterday's lockout, the Teamsters Rail gave the company a 72-hour strike notice. François Laporte is the union president.
Things are moving quite rapidly. I understand that this morning our group at CN signified the 72 hours notice for a strike at CN. So we will see CN the same scenario than the one here at CP.
Laporte says they're waiting to look at the specific language in the order from the Canada Industrial Relations Board, but he says he doesn't believe the federal government and the board have the legal right to order them back to work.
The Canadian Industrial Labour Board issued a decision 2 weeks ago that this is not essential services and there is no emergency. And this is why we were surprised with the minister's decision yesterday.
The Canada Industrial Relations Board is meeting today to draft the order after the Labour Minister Steve McKinnon announced yesterday that the 2 disputes would be referred to binding arbitration. Experts worry the disruption will permanently damage Canada's reputation. Bruce Caron is an associate professor with the Faculty of Law at the University of Manitoba. He says given the massive economic impact, he's not surprised the Labour Minister intervened yesterday. He says railway operations won't go back to normal even when workers do, because the railways slowed their work in anticipation of the stoppage.
There is an open question as to whether they will ever get back to 100% of the pre-strike levels, in part because there has been substantial damage to the confidence in the railways and their reliability to ship product.
Wade Subkowicz is with the Western Grain Elevator Association. He says many customers made other arrangements and the reputational damage has been devastating. Winnipeg police have made several arrests involving youth violence. In early August, an 80-year-old man was attacked with a machete along Pritchard Avenue. He ended up in hospital in stable condition. Police determined a 12-year-old girl, a 14-year-old boy, and a 15-year-old boy were the suspects. They were armed with an axe and machetes. The girl was arrested and charged. Then on August 7th, police alleged the 2 boys assaulted a different 15-year-old with machetes, causing life-altering injuries. The victim was unknown to his attackers. The older of the 2 boy suspects was arrested 3 days later, and the younger was arrested 8 days later. Both are in custody and facing several charges in both incidents. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 1:30.
Thanks, Rosanna.
You're welcome.
Now I'm joined in studio by weather specialist Riley Lachuk. Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm going to start talking about air quality to start this time, because we have seen some air quality advisories expanded throughout parts of the province as we get into the day today. Not going to be particularly hazy or air quality impacted for us here in the Red River Valley, but certainly into the Parkland region, into Flin Flon, the Pas Thompson is where we'll see the greatest impacts because of wildfire smoke. So we have an air quality advisory now in place for Dauphin, Roblin Russell, Swan River, the Pas Flin Flon, Grand Rapids, Norway House, Thompson, into the northeastern part of Manitoba as well. Wildfire smoke in the region will create haze, particularly through Dauphin, Swan River, but more smoky conditions the further north you go today. And expect that to continue as we get into the weekend, which I'll talk about in just a moment. For the rest of us, mainly sunny skies across southern Manitoba, central Manitoba today. A few clouds still hanging around in the north, and Shamattawa and along the Hudson Bay coast seeing some showers into far northern Ontario as well as a result of that area of low pressure that impacted southern Manitoba early yesterday through central and northern Manitoba throughout the day yesterday. So I'll talk about smoke because we are looking at pretty hazy conditions. Barons River, Grand Rapids north into Norway House in Thompson in particular, looking at the greatest impacts from haze today. We'll see some of that drifting a little bit further south throughout the day today, but air quality does start to improve as we get through Saturday, albeit still a bit of a hazy day, in particular for the Island Lake region, God's Lake into the Barons River area, still dealing with some of that smoke. And this is from wildfires that are burning just across the Manitoba-Ontario border, north of Bekanjicum, closer to Bearskin Lake, seeing some wildfire smoke from those southeasterly winds pushing into parts of northeastern Manitoba, and that's impacting air quality in particular as we get through the day on Saturday. Things do lighten up a bit as we get into Sunday, though. For the rest of Manitoba, our forecast for the weekend, we're looking at a mainly sunny sky today. A good chance we could see some scattered showers, maybe a rumble of thunder early in the morning for Westman tomorrow. So Brandon, Melita into Riding Mountain National Park. Even as far north as Dauphin and Roblin maybe could see a few showers first thing in the morning. That really dissipates, though, doesn't have an impact on the Red River Valley or much of the rest of southern Manitoba. But we do see an area of low pressure that will move in on Sunday, and that will bring us a fairly good chance of some widespread scattered showers throughout the later part of Sunday, in particular noon onward for southern and central Manitoba. So could see a few drops of rain on Sunday. For us in Winnipeg, I'm not talking about a soaking rain or anything like that, but nothing to ruin your day if you have any outdoor plans. But we could see a few showers on Sunday through southern Manitoba. 25 in Winnipeg right now, 23 in Brandon, 18 in Thompson at the moment, 20 in the Pas. Looking at a high of 28 in both Brandon and Winnipeg, close to 30 across much of southern Manitoba, high 20s into northwestern Ontario as well. And we get a pair of 30s for Saturday, Sunday, Lori, feeling closer to 35, 36 with the humidity, and then back to 25, 26 degrees to start next week.
Well, I keep telling my tomatoes about this warm weather that they're having, and they seem to just absolutely ignore it. And they're sitting there all nubbiny and whatnot.
Maybe for the weekend.
Maybe this is the weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
That's weather specialist Riley Lachuk, and of course you can hear him this afternoon on Up to Speed from 3 to 6. You are listening to Radio Noon. It is 24 minutes before 1 o'clock. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, filling in for Janet Stewart. And we want you to give us a call about phone scams. And this phone thing is for real. This is not a scam, but there are a lot of scams out there. So give us a call at 204-780-0893. Because over the past few weeks, Winnipeg police say they've noticed an uptick in reports of fraudulent calls alleging to be from financial institutions. And during the call, someone says the victim's bank accounts have been compromised or there's been an unauthorized transaction. And you can imagine how panic-inducing that could be. But it goes on from there, getting the victim to transfer money, which goes to the scammer. Now, does this sound familiar to you, or have you experienced this recent attempt to get your money? If you or someone you know has been a victim of this phone scam or another one, we want to hear from you. What happened? And what did you do? And how can people protect themselves from scammers? Our guest today is Jeff Horncastle. He is with the RCMP's Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, and he joins us by Zoom to talk about phone scams. Hello.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi. So, Jeff, yes, we want people to give us a call, so I'm just going to send those numbers out into the ether again, 204-780-0893, or text us at 204-588-7355. So, Jeff, Winnipeg police are warning the public about a new scam that they've been receiving complaints about. I alluded to it a bit, but can you describe in more detail what's been going on?
Yeah, so I think it's so important to, spread awareness about telephone fraud, because I think there's so much conversation about new technology and cyber-enabled fraud that we kind of forget that the phone is still one of the main solicitation methods used by fraudsters, right? So, what you touch on is what we call the bank investigator fraud. They may claim to be your credit card company, your bank, or in some cases they may claim to be Amazon or one of the companies that you frequently purchase from.
Sure.
So basically, they claim that there are 2 fraudulent transactions on your account, and you have to dial 1 or 2 to speak with somebody at the bank. They try to make you believe that there's been fraud in your account and that somebody within the bank may be responsible. So you have to keep the investigation very discreet. You can't, the bank can't know about it. So that's kind of how they convince the victim to transfer money. Sometimes it involves the victim going out and buying gift cards and sending money that way. And of course, they'll ask for remote access to the victim's computer. And it's really good timing because we just put out a bulletin about a couple of new variations that we're seeing at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. So when we publish bulletins, we put them out on our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter or X. So if you get a chance, check them out. It'll really define the new variations that we're seeing, because it's very common for fraudsters to kind of change the story, right?
Change it up a
people
bit,
are
yeah.
fooled. Exactly, because if it's the same thing over and over again, then less people are going to fall for that crime.
Yeah.
So,
well, we have callers calling in already, and get on the lines and tell us your experiences at 204-780-0893. And Jeff, we have Cynthia on the line, and I think she's got something to tell us. Hello, Cynthia.
Hi there.
What happened to you?
Well, it just happened yesterday. I was talking to, who was it? I was talking to my bank. Wait, let me think. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm getting all confused here. I was trying to do a transaction with Shaw. I was asking them to help me with something that was going on with my bank. Mm-hmm. We actually talked for about 2 hours, back and forth, and they said, I think it's best that you talk to Microsoft, get their help desk, and they'll help you with this particular problem. So, okay, so I looked up Microsoft help desk online, and little do I know it's a scam and a fraudster. And so the gentleman replied by phone, and the first question he asked is, could he have access to my computer so that he could start this process of figuring out the answer? So I didn't even hesitate. I gave him access to my computer. Oh, no. And then as the interaction continued, the questions were getting more and more weird. And I thought, this isn't right. He did ask me for money. He asked me to, he said that I have a bug in my system, and it's a virus. If I don't fix it immediately, that Microsoft can't guarantee that I'll even be helped or covered by this.
Oh, dear.
And so I had to transfer money right away. And I said, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with this. And he said, well, what do you mean? You contacted us. Why are you thinking that this is a problem? And I said, because it just doesn't sound right to me in my gut. And he said, well, that's fine. You take your chances. But I'm telling you, after today, we're not going to be covering you. Wow. And so it went like that, and I hung up the phone, and I said to myself, I think that I did a good thing there. And I contacted the gentleman who helps me with computer problems, and he said, yeah, the only problem is you gave him access to your computer.
Yeah.
So he's actually on his way here right now to help clean up my computer, and who knows what he's got. But what I do know is I didn't give him my bank account number or any money.
Wow.
And so I get a few points for that.
You get quite a few points for that, Cynthia, and we'll get Jeff's reaction to your experience. Thank you very much for starting off the conversation. And anybody else who wants to weigh in with a comment or a story, do give us a call, 204-780-0893. What do you think about what happened to Cynthia? Jeff?
Well, I want to start off by saying that even more points, Cynthia, by calling in today and sharing that experience, because it can go such a long way. Even if you protect one person from falling a victim, you've done a good thing today. So first of all, very, very common. So in Cynthia's case, she opened up her search engine or Google and searched for Microsoft phone number. This goes for anything, whether you're looking to purchase tickets and you type in Ticketmaster, or if you're looking for customer support for your printer, the first 5 to 10 results that normally show up are more than likely fraudulent websites. So you always want to make sure that, in this case here, she was looking for Microsoft. You want to make sure that you're on the official Microsoft website, so Microsoft.com, and pay attention to that address, because sometimes they're sneaky. They'll change one letter.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not notice that you're on a fraudulent website, right? So, but I do want to mention, just due to the fact, and it's a great thing that she's getting her device cleaned by a technician. But also, if she did have personal information on her computer that was exposed, then she would be required to go through the steps to protect her identity from being a victim of identity fraud. So the steps are all listed on our website, antifraudcenter.ca, which include contacting Equifax and TransUnion to put fraud alerts on her file. And although she mentioned that, she didn't share her banking details, still advised to contact her financial institutions to let them know what occurred, so they can add an extra layer of protection on her accounts.
I guess change all the passwords too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But only after the device has been cleaned, and of course use a different password for every account.
Yeah. How do they get in the top 5 all the time on these online ones?
2 different methods. It could be a sponsored ad. So, if they're paying that specific provider to be the first result that shows up, or through search engine optimization, which is kind of like the same idea.
Yeah.
So
okay.
just something to keep in mind whenever you're doing any kind of search.
That's a good
if you're
tip.
looking for 100%.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the phone lines. Mary Jo is on the line. Hi, Mary Jo.
Hi. Yes, I have a friend whose dad had owned a timeshare in Puerto Vallarta. Well, he still owns it. And it was actually a CBC story on Mexican cartels scamming seniors and others who own condos and timeshares in Puerto Vallarta and a couple of other Mexican cities.
Oh.
Anyway, he got a call from some guy saying, just a cold call, we'll buy your condo for this amount of money. $600,000 we'll give you, but you have to pay taxes and fees and stuff, but after we give you the money. Well, then it came down to that they'd already paid the fees and taxes, so he had to send them the money. So he went to his first bank, and they turned him down, saying it was a scam. He went to his second bank, and they did the same. So he went to a new bank, got a new account, and transferred $60,000 to Mexico.
Oh.
And that's just the start of it. We don't even know how much else he did. I had called the RCMP on his behalf.
Mm-hmm.
I had told his children on his behalf. I showed them the CBC article. And the father just figured that he knew what he was doing, and his kids were messing in his life, and they should just leave him alone.
Oh, dear.
So we don't know how many, but we figure it's over 100,000 by now.
Gee. Well, Mary Jo, that's a cautionary tale. Thanks very much for letting us in on that one.
One more thing I'd like to point out is with this scam, these people are now saying, we have documents and papers and we'll have a Zoom call with you.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a Zoom call with you to make it look more legit. And that's why the father thought it was more legit, because he had actually seen and talked to them.
Oh, boy.
And that's why he kept giving them money. So I wanted to let people know that this is going on. It was mentioned in CBC several times, but he just wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go. And you have direct response of it. Jeff, are you familiar with this?
Absolutely. So it's one of the more sophisticated types of fraud where they target people that own timeshares. Very, very sophisticated, like I mentioned. So they'll go to the lengths of preparing legal documents and, make it look very, very legitimate. So anybody that's out there that owns a timeshare and are offered, to sell their timeshare should be doing their due diligence, consult with a lawyer perhaps before proceeding, and most importantly, sending money. Even if they're promising to send the money back once the transaction is complete, it does not mean it's legitimate. Always get a second opinion, and in this case here, more than likely a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've heard some interesting stories, and if you have a comment or a question or something that happened to you, or if you know someone who was victimized, do give us a call at 204-780-0893, or you can text me at 204-588-7355. We hear, a lot about these scams, but it does seem like they're becoming more frequent. Are there more, or is that just a perception?
No, not necessarily perception, but then again, we have to consider even the stats that we share. So, 571 million was lost to fraud in 2023. That number is unfortunately only the tip of the iceberg because we estimate that only 5 to 10% of victims report.
Tell me about that a bit. Why is that? Only 5 to 10% of victims report.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a few different reasons. Somebody may be ashamed to discuss what happened to them and embarrassed. They may not want to report unless they're guaranteed to get their money back or guaranteed restitution. They may have a belief that the law enforcement can't do anything. I think, it's important to understand what the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre does, what we do with the information. Although we don't investigate, we are the central repository for fraud in Canada. So we have the ability to link information together across the country from various reports and share that information to support investigations, not only in Canada, but internationally as well.
And how sophisticated are these scams becoming? You were talking about the timeshare one, which sounded very sophisticated. I guess there's a range.
There is a range. So I think there's a lot of discussion about artificial intelligence, which is adding to that sophistication. So, we're looking at simple phishing emails now that are maybe a little more personalized and more believable because of artificial intelligence. Fraudsters have the ability to possibly collect data on the person, right? Whether they're using AI to collect data on the person from social media or anywhere on the internet before they send that message out. So that's one example. Deepfakes are out there where we see news anchors or celebrities promoting cryptocurrency platforms or merchandise. We have to remember that, we don't have to necessarily be experts in technology, but just being aware that technology is out there and sticking to the same prevention steps that we would normally follow, which normally involve doing research before making a decision.
Tell us a bit about the sort of breadth of this. Cynthia mentioned drug cartels organizing it. Is this organized crime? Like who are perpetrating these scams?
For the most part, it is organized crime, very organized, and that's very closely linked to the sophistication, right? Whether we're looking at romance scams or crypto investments, very, very well orchestrated and organized, and for the most part, international organized crime.
And where do you find it seems lots seniors are being targeted? Is that true, or is it so random now that they just hope that they get someone vulnerable?
It's actually, from what we're seeing, it's everybody and anybody that's getting targeted. With that being said, there are certain types of fraud that do target seniors, like the grandparent scam that we talk a lot about. The bank investigator
fraud. Remind us of the grandparent scam.
So the grandparent scammer, we refer to it as the emergency grandparent scam. It might be a phone call from criminal claiming to be a loved one, your grandchild, a niece or nephew, saying that they've been in an accident and they're getting charged with a serious offense, and they need a payment right away to avoid going to jail for bail. Basically, how it goes. Okay. So if you ever get a phone call of this nature, just know that there's a really good chance that it's a fraud, and the best thing you can do is end the call and call that person back by looking up the number you have in your contact list.
And then what are some of the other ones?
We're bank investigator fraud is a big one another big one that targets seniors. But generally, it's anyone that they're very random.
Well, I've certainly heard a lot of people talk about getting it from supposedly Revenue Canada, and there's something the matter with your taxes. That one might strike a lot of fear in people.
Yeah, so you could be getting an email, a text message saying that you're entitled to a benefit, or there's something wrong with your taxes. They need you to click on a link or download an attachment, or it might be a phone call claiming to be from the CRA, saying that there's something wrong with your taxes, asking for personal information. Again, with any type of incoming communication, you always have to go a step further and make the outgoing communication.
Yeah.
Right. So in the case where you get a phone call from the CRA and they're only asking for you to confirm personal information, don't do it. End the phone call. Let them know you're going to call them back. Look up the official phone number for the CRA and make the outgoing phone call.
Yeah. Give us a call. We've got a few minutes left, 204-780-0893. And Jeff, I wanted to ask you also, what when they are investigated, when you pass on the information that is reported to you, what can the police actually do?
I wouldn't really be able to comment on that, but what I can say is that we do share the information to support investigations, and the information that we have shared in the past and continue to share does help.
Yeah. And what about financial institutions? Do they have any responsibility in this?
We always advise any victim to contact their financial institution directly, whether they've lost personal information or if they've lost money. It really depends on what method of payment was used, but we always advise victims to contact their financial institution.
Mm-hmm. We have a text here from a listener with a few tips on how to protect yourself. Tell me what your reaction is to this. My landline is unlisted, says this text. Number only given on a need-to-know basis. Callers on my contact list will ring on my cell, and all others go to voicemail. I do a reverse search on my non-contact list and block when needed. Just my way of protecting myself. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a good way of protecting. But then again, even if your number is not listed, we have to remember that fraudsters are using automated dialing, which means that they're dialing a bunch of random combinations of phone numbers. They have no idea who they're calling, right? So although your number is not listed, it's not going to prevent phone calls from coming in. Blocking can definitely help, but for the most part, these are spoofed telephone numbers that are calling you. So there's a good chance that every time they call you, there's a different phone number calling you.
Yeah. So what scams have been most shocking to you, Jeff?
You know what? There's off the top of my head, I would have to say crypto investment scams.
Oh, tell me about that.
317 million was lost to to investment fraud in 2023. So fraudsters will use different ways. They'll send you a message from a compromised social media account claiming that they're one of your friends and that they made a lot of money through this cryptocurrency platform. Or you might come across an ad on social media for cryptocurrency. Or, if you're interested, or if you're, looking into investing into cryptocurrency, same kind of example that Cynthia messaged. You open up your search engine and you type in cryptocurrency investment. There's a good chance that the first 5 to 10 results you're coming across are fraudulent. So what happens is that for the most part, the victim will decide to invest a couple $100, and they'll see their money grow, and it's very well legitimate looking platform where the victim actually sees their money growing. And fraudsters will actually let the victims take out that first bit of money that they've invested to make them believe that it's legitimate. So, let's say, for example, they put 200 in and they made 400. They'll allow them to take that money out, and then that'll convince them to put even more money in. And unfortunately, we've seen victims lose into the hundreds of thousands of dollars with these types of frauds. So, as time goes on, they keep investing, and months down the line, when they go to invest that very large amount that they've invested, they're not able to.
It's very complicated and so many ways to lose your money. And interesting on how they play on human emotions. Either, could be greed or it could be love for your grandchildren. And they've really got all the angles covered. Thank you very much, Jeff, for being with us and bringing us all this important information.
Thank you so much for having me. And I wish I can go through everything, but I will advise anyone, if they want to read up on different types of fraud, visit our website, antifraudcenter.ca, and go through a fraud index. Every type of fraud is listed there.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks.
Bye. That's Jeff Horncastle. He is the Client and Communications Outreach Officer of the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. And you are listening to the final moments of Radio Noon, and we have Emily Brass in the studio with us to give us a taste of what's coming up on Up to Speed this afternoon. Hi, Emily.
Hey, Lori. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too.
Thank you. So, this might be the last weekend, last chance to get in some festival action before school starts, and the Morden Corn and Apple Festival opens today. We're going to have the chairperson from that festival coming in. We're also going to have a couple of the organizers of the first ever Winnipeg Punk Fest that's happening happening at
Punk
Royal
Fest.
Albert Arms. Yes, and it's got
good location for it.
Exactly, a dozen local bands, and one from Portage and one from Brandon too. So lots going on. We'll give you the details on Up to Speed.
Well, that sounds like good fun. Thanks a lot, Emily. And you can hear Emily this afternoon from 3 to 6 on Up to Speed. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. See you a day or two next week, probably. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.